Hi everyone and welcome to today's video on Linux for ethical hacking. If you have never used Linux before and are looking to get into it, this is the perfect opportunity for you to learn on how you can use this operating system in your daily lives. Now, although this video is specifically catered towards people who are trying to get into cybersecurity or who are trying to learn ethical hacking, the more people that get into Linux is that much easier because it just provides an alternative operating system that you can use and perform in your day-to-day lives. Now, it's very important, especially for ethical hackers, to understand how Linux works and specifically how Kali Linux works that we are going to cover today. Now, Kali Linux is also an operating system dedicated specifically to cybersecurity analysts and hackers and has a bunch of tools that makes the process of ethical hacking and vulnerability analysis, malware analysis very easy. So, in this Linux crash course, we will learn everything about Kali Linux, what it is, what you can use it for, then understanding a bit more of the Linux system fundamentals. Now that can span across a variety of topics. For the Linux fundamentals, we often have how to navigate the file system, how we can use the Linux operating system command terminal for creating, editing, and just manipulating files. We'll understand some networking commands that can help you. We'll understand how the service mechanism, how to start services, stop services. We'll understand how to install, uninstall some particular tools. We'll also create a small script with Bash so that you can understand how you can use the Bash language to start your scripting journey in Kali Linux directly. Before we move forward, let's check out the CEH certification course by Simplilearn. If you want to learn more about cybersecurity and ethical hacking in general, check out our CEH certification training course. The Certified Ethical Hacker certification is the industry standard for trained penetration testers, and our training program will ensure you are well equipped with all the necessary skills and techniques required to ace the exam. You'll get an exam voucher for free with the course, allowing you to learn, master, and excel as a penetration tester with a single package. You can find the link for the course in the description box below. That being said, we can get started with our demonstration. Now, the first thing we need to understand is how we can install Linux properly. To install Linux, or Kali Linux to be specific in this case, we will need two things. One, we need the ISO file, which is basically the installation file of every single operating system, and we will need an environment to run it in. Now, many people use Linux or any other operating system as a dual boot in the system, so that when you start up your computer or a laptop, it will ask you where do you want to boot into. Do you want to boot into Windows or Kali Linux or Ubuntu, something like that. But for easier access, what many people prefer and many people will recommend is using a virtualization software. So what that will happen is you will keep using your normal Windows operating system, but you can use virtualization software like VirtualBox or VMware to run Linux operating systems in Windows directly. It will run in a sandboxed environment, which makes it easier to learn, and you don't have to dedicate another bootloader access, and it just gets a whole lot complicated. Dual booting is a lot more complicated, and it is recommended for beginners to just stick with virtualization software. Now, for virtualization software, you will get two options here, which will be VirtualBox by Oracle or VMware. Now, I highly recommend VMware because I feel it is much more stable and it has a bit more fluidity when running operating systems. Now, since you are running full-fledged operating systems in a single window, your system must have a good amount of RAM free so that it can be completely dedicated to the operating system being run in that sandboxed environment. So I would really recommend VMware over VirtualBox, which I feel has become slightly dated now. Meanwhile, VMware Workstation Player is going to be much better. This is obviously a case of preference, and you can try out VirtualBox if you want. Most of the things will be similar. But once you download VMware and install it, you should be getting a window like this. Now, this is the workstation. You can get the VMware Player version, which is the free version. You can get that as well. And again, most of the things will be similar. So now that we have VMware and we have our environment where we are going to install Linux and work on it, let's check Kali Linux. Now, Kali Linux, as you can see, it's the world's most advanced penetration testing distribution, and more importantly, it is based on Debian. Debian is one of the you can say the forefathers of operating systems, one of the operating systems which paved the way for many Linux distributions to be based on it. Apart from Kali, we also have another operating system which is called Parrot Security. This is also used by ethical hackers and cybersecurity analysts, because this has this functions the same way as Kali Linux, as in it has all the tools and techniques that you may require in your ethical hacking journey. So you can use either of them, either Kali Linux or Parrot Security. And more importantly, for today's video, actually any Linux distribution will do, because this is more about learning the basics, and the basics will stay same irrespective if you go for Kali, Parrot, Ubuntu, or any other Linux distribution that you can think of. But just letting you know that there are two options here. Parrot has a bit more features, but Kali Linux is the industry standard today and has been for like a decade now at this point. So it is much recommended to go with Kali, and that's what we are going to work on today. So to download the ISO file, we'll just click the download button here. And you can see it offers a variety of options. You can directly download for virtual machines, which is, as you can see, it is the recommended, but it is going to deprive you of a few learning things. So what we can do is we will get the live boot system. What live boot will do, it will provide the ISO file, which we can later use to install on our VMware system. So I will go to the live boot. It includes everything. As you can see, I got a torrent file. I will place this torrent for download now. Actually, instead of the torrent, we can just download the point release live image. This version had every tool possible, but this one, this January edition, you can see Kali 2023.1, the January live version, point release live image. You can just download this one directly. Just click the download button here, which is written at 3.8 gigs, the ISO file size. Just click on download, and your download will start. Then remember, once again, you can do this process with Parrot Security directly as well. I think if we go to download button here, yes, we have to choose the security edition. Now they also have multiple versions. For, let's say, the home edition is for daily use, just casual browsing or just multimedia process, all those things. Hack the Box is completely separate service that functions easy to hack boxes. That will be a completely separate edition, similar to Cloud, Architect, and Raspberry Pi. But if you are going to use Parrot Security, get the security edition directly. Just download it from here, and you'll be good to go. But for now, we are just going to install Kali Linux, since that is what the majority of the industry uses, and we'll move forward with it organically. These are the containers. Yes. Now what would have happened if you had chosen virtual machine is, as you can see, there are many virtualization software like VMware, VirtualBox, and QEMU. What will provide is, it will provide a installed file. It will give a folder where the VirtualBox VMware has already installed Kali Linux. So you can just load up in your VMware system. As you can see, you have to choose open a virtual machine if you download the image directly, this one. So you can just open up that folder and your operating system will load on its own. But after getting the ISO, you can customize a lot of things. The thing about this virtual images are they're not customizable as such. With the ISO, I can customize how much hard disk space I want to devote to just the sandbox operating system, how much RAM usage, although those RAM usage and all can be customized. Everything will be tailor-made based on your specific needs. So we will check that once the download is completed, which is just 1 minute remaining. Apart from that, you can see there is a 64-bit. I think this is 32-bit as well. I'm not sure if 32-bit is required nowadays, considering everything is 64. But yes, before while the ISO is getting downloaded, let's check out VMware Workstation. Now, to get started at creating our sandboxed environment, we will touch upon create a new virtual machine. Yes. Here we can, let's say, check on custom, because we want to customize how much we want to give. Hardware, we can use workstation 16.x, which is the latest one. Now here I am going to choose I will install the operating system later. If I give the ISO file here directly, it will install the operating system on its own, which kind of defeats the purpose. If that was the case, we would have downloaded the live image anyway. I will click on I will install the operating system later. We will choose in the guest operating system, we will choose Linux, and make sure you choose Debian 10.x 64-bit. As we read in the website, it is based on Debian. It's Debian based Linux distribution. Now this can obviously change. There are other operating systems on which this can be based, like Fedora and Arch, but this one is Debian, so we are going to choose Debian over here, Debian 10x 64-bit, which is the latest version. Click on next. We will name it as Kali Linux and click on next. The number of processors, I am going to give 2 processors here. Total processor cores is 4. This you can determine based on how powerful your system is and how much you can give as it is, because a major part of how a virtual machine runs is not just how much RAM you give to it, is how much RAM is available outside of a sandbox environment. Because if, let's say, your system is has 8 gigabytes of RAM, you devote 4 gigabytes to the virtual machine. Windows itself takes up around 4 GB, at least 3.5 GB when it's sitting idle. So you have to account for all that when dedicating processors, and more importantly RAM as well. So we're going to click on next for now, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to give 2.5 gigabits of RAM, which should be enough for the thing, at least the things that we are doing today. This can be customized later on as well. Let's say you started working and then you realize the amount of RAM that you have given is just not enough and you need a bit more, then you can customize that later. For now I'm going to give 2.5 gigabits of RAM. You can see the recommended is 2 gigabit anyway. I'll just go a step further. Click on next. Use network address translation is the network connection, as in what kind of networking it should have, the virtual sandbox should have. Considering it is being run inside an operating system, your Windows, whatever internet connection is given to your Windows, will go to Kali Linux directly. But you can customize that. Let's say you don't want networking, you want host only networking, that you connect the guest operating system to a VPN later on. It's a completely customizable process, but for easiest access, we are going to use network address translation. IO controller types LSI is always going to be the most recommended, so just go ahead with it. Choose SCAI for the virtual disk type. Now these are different virtual disk types that can be used, and they have different purposes. Like some make it easier to transition between multiple installations of VMware or VirtualBox based on what you've chosen, but SCSI is always considered the best. Disk would be, we will create a new virtual disk. Now this is the maximum disk size or the disk capacity. How much hard disk storage we are going to devote for the operating system installation and all the files, whatever you work in the system, that will be stored somewhere, right? So we're going to devote the basically the ROM size to make it easier to understand. So I will give 30 gigabits of memory size. Now here you have another option. You can actually allocate all disk space now, as it is written. Allocating the full capacity can enhance performance, but requires all of the physical disk space to be available right now. So the good thing about VMware is, if I think that's in VirtualBox as well, if I do not click this, even though I have written 30 gigabits, it does not take up all of the 30 gigabits in your hard disks. It takes how much ever is required. Let's say after installation and everything, it takes up 10 gigabits of space. That is all that will be taken up. It won't take up all the 30 gigabits. The more you keep working and slowly the data increases, the size increases of the virtual machine folder, it will go up to 30 gigabits. That's it. So if you allocate all of it now, it will take up the 30 gigabits directly, and it will be slightly more performance because it will remove that read functionality when the virtual machine is being run. So I will click it, and between these two options, between single files and multiple files, single files is faster, but multiple files will make it easier if you want to move your virtual machine system from, let's say, one laptop to another, or you have to switch between personal and official systems. But for now, I can choose a single file. One 30 disk file will be created. You can just put whatever name, and I think everything else is settled. Now what we will do is we will click on finish. It will take some time to create the disk. I think the ISO download would have been completed. Yes, the ISO download is completed by now. It will just take a while to create the disk. There is also Kali Net Hunter, which is a mobile penetration testing platform. It is available only on Android. You can use it to perform small tasks. Obviously, you can't perform everything that you can on Kali Linux desktop environment, but a lot of the things can be performed, like basic network scanning and some amount of sniffing and brute forcing tools. All those things can be performed on NetHunter directly, but that is a video for another day. So we'll just wait till the disk is created, and then we'll move forward with the process. As you can see, the virtual machine is now created. So the next step would be to actually align the ISO file. So we're going to click on Edit Virtual Machine Settings here. We'll select the CD/DVD position, use ISO image file. We're going to browse, go to Downloads, use the Kali Linux ISO, and click on OK. So now we can power on. Select Live System AMD 64 at all times. Okay. You can see a pop-up here below that says install Debian as you would on a physical computer, that we are going to do, which should be Kali Linux. In this case, it just shows Debian because it is based on Debian. That's it. When you're done and the operating system boots up, click I finish installing. So we will do that when the time is correct. So you can see the live boot running up. Okay, you can see Kali Linux is booting up now. You get the usage, CPU usage meter here, and this should be the memory. Yes. Okay, so we have entered booted into the desktop. These are the multiple workspaces, but once again, this is not installed. What we're going to have to do is install this operating system. You can see you can use in the live environment, you can use everything, but you just have to install this operating system directly. The networking system is working. Okay. So once you familiarize yourself with the Kali Linux operating system, and more importantly, in the live environment, you are able to check if the amount of RAM that you have given and your processor in general is able to sustain everything or not. What we will do is we will just power off the virtual machine. We'll again power on, and this time we'll not choose the live system. What we will choose is we'll go down, we'll choose the advanced installation options, we'll click graphical install and install. That's it. Now what this will do is will launch the graphical installer instead of the live system. Some operating systems like Parrot Security, for example, will allow you to install directly from the live environment, but that's it. It's not really a very big difference if you run it from here or there. Now the installer is launched. I'm sorry. We'll click the English language. Yes. It will ask for your location so that it will set your time zone. I will choose India. Configure the keyboard. You can choose American English, considering that is the standard keyboard layouts that is available on the market. It will load the additional components like the networking modules, the input-output device detection drivers, all those things. Some of the partitioning devices as well, I think. It will detect the network hardware next. Configuring. Configuring the network with DHCP. Yes. Now that we have to select the host name. The host name, I will just keep it as Kali. That's not a very big deal. This is more important if you're a lot into networking and you want to have, particular home network as a kind of like acting as a server for all the devices in your home Wi-Fi. Otherwise, it's not an issue. Same thing with the domain name. I will skip the domain name because it's not really essential for what we are doing here. Yes, but the username will obviously be required. The full name, I will give it as Simplilearn, for example. I'll keep the same username. That was the full name. This is the username. Password you can give based on your wish. Make sure the password's the same. This is the single user, by the way. You can obviously create multiple users like we do on multiple other operating systems. Now it will check the disk partitioning. Here, since we are installing it on VMware, any virtualization software, be it VirtualBox or VMware, we will use guided, which is use entire disk. Continue. As you can see, we had devoted 30 GB. It is showing 32.2. Similar situation here. We're going to click on continue. All files in one partition, which is recommended for new users. You can partition it to home, where TMP, maybe other partitions as well that you can keep, a swap partition as well, but that's not necessary now. We'll keep all of them in a single partition. Just make sure all the changes are there. It will create the swap memory on its own and click on continue. It will ask that these are the changes being made. Just select yes, continue, and it will start installing Kali Linux into the VMware virtual disk. Now, this will take some time, so we will speed this up and come back to it when the installation is done. So now we have to set the package manager. The main partitioning system is done and most of the installation part is done. We just have to configure the package manager and use a network mirror. Click on yes, APT. You don't need to set up anything else here. You can just click on next and it will set up APT, which is the package manager of Kali Linux. Now what the package manager will do is help us install, uninstall, update the tools and libraries that Kali Linux uses, all the softwares and all the tools that we're going to use later on. It will configure the package manager for now. It's almost done. Now it's installing the grub bootloader, which will, when you start up the system, it will ask you where do you want to log in. Yes, install the grub bootloader to my primary drive. Click on continue. We'll just select dev SDA, which is, you'll find a single drive anyway. Instead of entering enter device name manually, just click on whatever storage space is being written below that. Now if you're using it on VirtualBox or VMware, which we are doing right now, you will get only one storage. That's it. If you're dual booting, you'll get multiple and you'll have to make some choices. But that is advanced and we don't need to get into that right now. For now, only the last one should be enough. Now it is finalizing the installation. Just running a few post-installation clicks, that's all. And as you can see, the installation is complete. So please choose continue to reboot. We'll just press continue. Now it loaded in a lot of the packages during the live version and during the installer so that it can continue with the installation. So it's going to remove that live package now from the RAM and complete the process. As you can see, Kali Linux has rebooted and is going to the installed operating system now. You will learn, if you're a beginner into Linux, you will run into a lot of the commands being shown. Just don't freak out, it's all normal. It does take some time to start up depending on how much memory you have given it, how much RAM you have devoted to it, how much hard disk you have given it also depends on that. And obviously it also relies on how much memory your Windows operating system is using, so that how much extra RAM is available and how well Windows can push VMware Workstation. So you have the login screen. We are going to use whatever username and password we had set during installation to log in. Now this will be the root user. You'll understand more about that just now. Let's just allow it to boot completely. Okay. So now we have Kali Linux operating system installed and ready to go. Now what I would recommend, the first thing is just go around, just check. If you're new to Linux, do not make a lot of changes or anything like that, but do move around. For example, if you can just click the start button here, which is termed as applications, you can see a lot of the programs that are installed. Now the good thing about Kali Linux is it's very intuitive. So for example, information gathering, you'll see all the tools that you can use for information gathering. Now same for vulnerability analysis, web app analysis, password attacks, all the brute forcing tools that you can use, the wireless attacks like AirCrack, Reaver example, sniffing networks like Wireshark, etc. So just go around the operating system, see, check the file manager, how it works, and basically get a feel for the operating system directly. Okay, you see here's the file manager. Just check everything, how it's working. You can enter the settings and move and make some small changes. Now a lot of the settings won't matter a lot when running virtually, but it's good to know and understand what are the things that Linux offers. So it's a very important step. One more thing, if you are in a virtual machine, is make sure that VMware Tools is installed. Usually this gets installed directly, but if not, you can just reinstall here. Okay, I think so. Our environment is ready and set up. Now as you might know, a major part of Linux is the command line. So we're going to click the terminal here, or you can just open right. Terminal has opened. So this is basically the command line that you can use in Mac OS or Windows. So a lot of the things that we do on Linux is in the command line itself. Now you can use general graphical tools like let's say the file manager, for example. You can use graphical tools, you can use other networking tools as well, but it's always better to use the terminal, because one, you can reach things faster compared to a graphical tools, considering you just have to write a single command and that's it for most of the tools, other than having to navigate through a lot of menus and sections and other compartments that you have to do on a graphical interface. So we will have to focus more on this command line terminal. And the first thing that we have to learn in a command line terminal is the sudo user or the root user. We had discussed when creating the user, where I told that will be the root user, considering we're only adding just one user for now. Okay, so let's break that apart actually. Sudo is the keyword that we are looking for. Okay, now the super user or the root user administrator of the system is going to be someone who has the, all of the access to access everything, all the sensitive files, all the sensitive settings, all those things. Now, if you can just see, let's say if I want to open a file, I'm going to put cat etc shadow. Let's say permission denied. Cat is the way to open up text files, by the way. Now this file does exist, but I cannot open it because the permission is denied. I'm not the root user right now. I'm just Simplilearn@Kali. Now the terminal does not go into root mode by default because it's not safe from a security perspective. So we have to check on what are the things that can be done securely. That's why what we will do is we will write down now sudo. Let's say sudo is the command for invoking the root user. We will write the same command, which is sudo cat etc shadow. It will ask you for your root password that we set before. We'll just put the same password, and as you can see, it showed the details of the shadow password, shadow file. So why? So that's the reason actually why it's not recommended to have the root user at all times. It's not recommended. Meanwhile, what you can do is, let's say you work a lot with the sudo password. For example, a lot of the things that we're going to do in this video will require the sudo keyword, which is the root access. Now, if you just open a new tab, for example, you'll get another terminal without any issues. Now, one thing I want to note out is if you are learning a lot of the tools that require the sudo command, like opening sensitive files like this one etc shadow, or making small changes that require root access, like changing the network adapter, checking what kind of external devices are being connected from a system perspective, all those things you will require to run continuously. So instead of writing sudo again and again and again for every command, what you can use is this command sudo su. Now what this will do is it will change the terminal, change the user in this particular terminal tab to a root user. Now I will just press enter, and you can see you can check this $sign here. Once I press on sudo su, this will change to a hash, and you can see the user has changed now from the Simplilearn to the root user, which basically has all the permissions to do whatever it can with the system. It can change into hash. So now whatever you have to do, you don't have to write sudo command anymore. And just write cat etc shadow, and there you go. Now remember, this root user terminal is only valid for this particular tab, not even this window, this particular tab. If I go to this tab here, or I'll just close it and create a new tab, it's still a $, and we're in the Simplilearn user anyway. You can't log in directly to the root user for security purposes. Like, let's say if, while it is ultra rare for Linux to have any kind of malware, it is always better to not give it all the permissions like you can have in some other operating system like Windows. So you have to dial into root directly. Okay, so you can use sudo command. You don't have to use sudo command if you have the sudo su. A lot of the things, sometimes you'll find commands that will not work, like the cat etc shadow, they will not work, or sometimes the commands will work but they won't work all the way. You'll find something is wrong. So always make it a point to try it with sudo once before moving forward. So now let's understand how we can navigate the file system in Linux. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the terminal again, just increase the size of the text a while. So as you can see, this tilde symbol, this means we're at the home location. To understand how we can determine which directory we are in currently, always remember, terminal will open in a particular directory. That's the entire point of the terminal or the command line, for example. To find out what you are in right now, you can just type in the command pwd, which stands for present working directory. Click enter, and you can see I'm at the home folder in the Simplilearn. Now this can obviously change. For example, if I want to move somewhere else, now I'll just open the file manager and show you once. This is the home Simplilearn folder. As you can see, it is written here. Thuna is the name of the file manager. This is the home folder. Now you have desktop, documents, downloads, music, all these folders, subfolders, you can say, inside the Simplilearn folder, home folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to, let's say, the documents folder. Okay, so the command for that would be cd, which is change directory. So I'm going to write, as you can see, it will automatically try to complete. The more you use Kali Linux, and actually most of the Linux operating systems, the shell or the terminal understands where you go and what you do, all those things. So that way I will going to change the directory to the let's say the documents folder. Now we're going to just write cd documents, and as you can see there is an extra word here, the documents, which means that now you are in the documents. We can use pwd command again to check, and you can see home Simplilearn documents. Now what if you're at a position where you don't know where you are and what are the files that are present there? For example, I just opened this in the graphical user interface and found out that okay, these are the subfolders that I can get into. To understand what are the folders available at your particular location, the command is just listing for command is ls, press enter. Okay, this is the documents. Apologies. We'll just, to go back one step, right now we are in home Simplilearn documents. To go back a single step, we'll just write cd double dot double full stop, then you can see once again we are back to home Simplilearn. Now once again, to understand what are the folders that are present, we have to use the command ls, and as you can see everything that is present. The desktop, document, downloads, music, pictures, all those folders can pop up. Now you can move here and there based on where you want to go. Apart from this, let's say if you want to create a new folder for your own, one thing we can do is mkdir. That command stands for make directory. Now if I want to create a new folder by the name of mkdir slp, now remember, make sure you understand which position we are at, which is right now home Simplilearn based on the last pwd. I haven't used cd command anything after that. So now if I press ls, you can see another folder in the name of slp. Now you can do the same things. You can just go to slp. You can see the path has now changed to home Simplilearn slp. You can go back, and that's how you can work and create folders. To delete, let's say I don't want to have the slp folder anymore, I'll just use rmdir slp. Now if I check ls, we don't have that folder anymore. So that's how you work in between folders. Now one more thing that you can do is just clear, and it will clear up the terminal for you. Now just to check where we are again, home Simplilearn. Now remember seeing the cat folder, right? The cat command using the etc folder and the shadow file. Now let's say if I want to see what is inside the etc file. For example, if I just put down ls, it will only show me what the folders present in my present working directory. What I can do is I can just write ls etc, and these are the folders that are present in the etc folder. So you can check other files listings here as well, and directly giving the full path. So that will ignore the current working directory, the present working directory, and show the folders present in the path that you mentioned. Okay. Apart from that, one more thing that we need to know when it comes to listing out details is the la command. Now all of these commands, this ls, pwd, at least 90% of the commands that you're going to use in the Linux terminal, I just clear this for now. 90% of the commands that you use in Linux will have sub commands, or it is also called as flags, that go along with it. Now for example, in my current present working directory, if I press on ls, I get these folders, right? But these are not the only folders that are present. These are the only folders that are being shown. Now to see the other files and folders that are present in the home folder, I can write the normal command ls. I'm going to add a sub command, or a flag if you say, -la. And you can see there are much more than the desktop documents, downloads. That's something that we were already seeing here. But apart from that, you can see other files and folders here. The .cache, .config, .bash logout, everything you can see. Now everything that has a dot or full stop before it is considered a hidden file. It's not going to show up directly using ls. You have to write the la command, which will show all the files. Now it's very important to understand these sub commands and what are the flags that can be used in different purposes. This is basically the shell. So the more research you do and understand what kind of flags that you can use, it's going to be easier. What can help here is the man command. The man basically stands for manual. You can find it in every Linux actually. Let's say you want to learn what are the flags that you can use with the ls command, for example, or you just want to know what that command is. So you can just type in man ls, and you see it basically says ls stands for list directory contents. Is a description. Here you can see all the sub commands, the flags -b, -d. There's a good explanation for every single subcommand that you can use in order to navigate to the file system or just listing. This is just for ls command. You can do this with almost any command that you want. It says once you've read what you needed to know, just press Q to quit, and there you have it. So that's all about how to list commands, list folders, and navigate through file systems using cd, mkdir, and rmdir. Now about the commands that you saw and all the folders that you were able to see, let's say if I just press lsla, you can see there is a folder called .cache, right? So to enter that file, you also need to just use the cd command. You can see the present working directory has changed. You can just press ls here and see if anything else. Yes, you can see there are other folders here as well. So the entire process remains the same, but just understand that if there are some files and folders that you're not able to see, which is going to happen a lot considering a lot of the things that are hidden in Linux by default. You can access all of those things, but you need to know the right commands and the right way to access them. So if you are missing out on some files and folders, just make sure you're using the ls command and sometimes even the la command to get the details of everything that you are missing. Now this folder currently doesn't have as such any a lot of missing files and folders like the home folder had. So right now it's not very indicative, but you get the full idea of it. Another thing that you can use apart from the, let's say, the man command is the help command. Help hyphen help. This is small. This is not as detailed as man, and this doesn't work for all commands, but you can do a lot of the commands. If you need a quick answer to something, you can definitely check this out, which is the hyphen help. So while we are clear about folders, like how to manipulate folders, let's take a look about how we're going to work with files, for example. Now, let's say we use the echo command. Echo command is the equivalent of trying to put something on screen. So let's say if I just press echo with the quotes, it will just print out hello. If I want to put it inside a file, I'll just say, just press Ctrl+0. I'll just spray echo hello. To autocomplete, just press the right arrow on your keyboard. It will autocomplete. After that, echo hello. I want to put this into a file. Let's say my file .txt. Yes. We'll do one thing. This is currently in the cache folder, right? We'll just go back. Yes, this is the home folder. So we're going to do the same thing here. Now, to go back to our history of commands, I want to do the same thing. I want to echo hello into a new file. So I'll just press the up arrow and it will go cycle through my recent commands. So I'll just press enter. And if I just press ls now, you can see in the home folder, there's a new file of myfile.txt. Okay. If I want to, let's say, move this file to one of these folders, let's say I want to move this to the video folders. So the command for that is cp, which is copy. I will copy the myfile.txt to the videos folder. So I'll just enter. I don't need to actually enter videos to see the files like we had discussed. So what are we going to do is I'm going to just type in ls videos, and you can see it has the myfile.txt folder. Now, since I copied it, obviously the home folder will also have the myfile.txt. In order to remove the myfile.txt, I have to use the rm command. Remember, to remove directories, we used rmdir. To remove files, we just have to use rm. So I'm going to use rm myfile.txt to delete the file. Now if I ls, the home folder does not have. But since it had I had copied, kept a copy in the videos folder, I'll press ls videos, press enter, and you can see it still has the myfile command. Okay. Now one more thing that we need to know is the move command. The move command will essentially move whatever folder wherever you want. Let's say I want to create echo hello myfile. Again, I'll press ls and I'll see the myfile.txt folder. Now if I want to move this file, let's say if I use the mv command instead of the cp command, which is just for a, I want to use the myfile.txt to, let's say, the downloads folder. It's saying permission denied. So what I will do is I will click on sudo. Like we discussed, a lot of the things will not work directly. We will use the same command. We'll use the downloads folder. It will now work. It's time to take a look at users and privileges. Now, if you remember our ls command, let's just check my present working directory. It's the home folder. Now, if you remember the -LA, you see a lot of the characters here, which is DR, W, XR, all those things. Now, this is basically to understand what permissions a user has. If you check here, there are folders and files. You can see the folders in the dark blue color and the files in the white color. You can see light blue for links, but it's a completely separate thing. So another thing, the permissions part. If you see, there are 3 groups here. This is the first group, this is the second group, this is the third group. The first group is the owner of the file. Now, what permissions does the owner have? Now, for example, right now the owner of, let's say, this one, this file, for example, is root. Most of the time it will be the user, but this time it is root. It has read, write, execute, R for read, W for write, and X for execute. Obviously, the owner will be able to do all those things. Now, the second group is basically for anyone who is part of the domain group in the users. Like if you remember, while installing, there was a option called create a domain. While we did not create it because we don't have a lot of users right now, but when you create a domain, what are the people in the group who are going to do? So they have the read function, which is the RX for execute, but they do not have the write function. They cannot write directly in this file. Similarly, for the third group, which is anyone outside of the group. So any other user, if they are not in a particular group of the file, then they also have the read function and the execute function, but they will not be able to write into the file directly. So that's how you can check all of the files that are able to, that a user can access or not access. That's basically the entire purpose of the privilege section, because we don't want to give undue permission to a people who do not require it. The entire point of security in Linux is a level of abstraction that is providing users with exactly what they are needed. So if you have a user that does not require executable functions to, let's say, the downloads folder, we can cut it off from our end as a root user anyway. So that's about providing privileges and providing access to certain files. Now, like we had discussed, the etc shadow file that we had used when checking the cat file. Now, one more thing that we can do again is understanding what the shadow file does. If you just press cat etc shadow, obviously it will not work. It will just say permission denied. We're going to say sudo cat shadow. This basically has the password hashes for all the users that are in a system right now. You can see the root does not have a hash, because it's not safe to have a particular hash for a user, just from security perspective. The user that we have created, which is Simplilearn, you can see the password hash being mentioned here. Now, depends on how many users you create. If you create 3, 4, 5 users, you can see all the password hashes here. Now, you can why this is password protected by security and we need to use the sudo user command is because if someone has this hash, let's say if someone is a cryptographer and is able to brute force through hashes, then it's going to be very easy to try and figure out the passwords to particular users' passwords. That's why even the hash is not shown with full confidence unless and until they get the sudo user command. So that's about privileges and how you can use the sudo command to bypass the normal user limits. So now let's take a look at some of the networking commands. We're going to clear this one for now. To check the adapters that we have in use right now, you can just write ifconfig or actually IPA, IPA. Similar information, IPA is a newer variant. It basically shows what are the adapters and the networking conditions right now. For example, you can see Ethernet. Now, even though I am using Wi-Fi on my local system, in network address translation, which is the NAT that we set the network package manager when setting up the virtual machine on this VMware, it will link up as Ethernet. So you can see Ethernet, you can check our local address, you can check the 24 subnet. This is our broadcast address and this is our MAC address for the system. This is the IPv6 address as well. Now, similarly, this can be checked on whichever system you are being connected to. The IPA at ifconfig is the same. It's just an older variant. Apart from this, there is another command actually, iwconfig. Now this is particularly for wireless. that was a wrong spelling. IWconfig. Now, right now it will not show any wireless extensions. If you are looking into wireless sniffing, network packet detection, or even wireless hacking, for example, we will publish a video on wireless hacking soon, so stay tuned for that. Apart from wireless hacking, if you are using any wireless extensions, let's say we have small adapters that people can use as portables or wireless cards for Wi-Fi. From some systems that do not have Wi-Fi enabled NICs in their motherboards, the people use modifiable custom portable adapters. So if you have one of those plugged in, you will see it in IWconfig. From IFconfig, you will only may be able to find out the IP address, and that's it. IWconfig will give you all the information and you can check later. Coming to different IP addresses, a command that you should be knowing is ARP. Now, if you're not familiar with ARP, that is going to be address resolution protocol. I think IPN will also show the same information. So what both of these do is it basically states which IP address relates to what MAC address. It will also show which one is reachable, which one is stable, all those extra stuff. Now, remember, whatever is being done in these kind of IP addresses and MAC addresses, all of them need to be put in a routing table if you want to connect with each other. Now, how you can check that? Just enter route and you can see the routing table for this particular system. You can see there is a destination for every IP address, there's an open gateway, there is a mask here, all of this stuff. Whatever data needs to travel in between hosts. Now the second host, let's say from this virtual machine, I want to travel, I want to communicate with a system that is in my similar Wi-Fi, in the same Wi-Fi network. Then there must be a routing table connection between them. This can, the example that I gave, the same Wi-Fi network thing, that will mostly be handled by a modem or the router basically. But what if it's not? What if there's just two systems and they're not having any other connection, and you just happen to have a LAN cable connected between them? You have to set these routing tables manually so that you are able to communicate. This is going to be expressly useful if you're setting up in domain group authorities and all those things. But apart from that, it's just a good thing to know how networking works. Now, all of these commands, these MAC addresses, these IP addresses, these are something that are of utmost importance. So learning networking when learning Linux is very essential. I highly suggest learn networking so that you can be able to grasp these things better. Now, based on how you can communicate with particular host addresses, there is a command if you want to check if you can reach a particular host or not. That is using the ping command. Now we'll take a common example for this because I don't have any other system in the vicinity network right now. So let's say if I want to I want to see if I have connection to google.com. Now you can use directly an IP address as well. I'm just going to check ping google.com, and you can see it will start pinging requests directly from the google.com server, whichever is the nearest server that Google has set. You can see it just says that it sent 64 bytes from this particular IP address it received. An ICMP request was sent. The time it took for each request is also mentioned at the end here: 15 ms, 16 ms, 17, 18, all those ms. Now, since we are getting a particular request back, ICMP basically needs a response. If we are getting a response, then that host is reachable. If I did not have internet right now, this would not be possible. I'll just show. I'll press Ctrl C. Whatever command is being run, if you want to stop it on the next terminal, it is best to it is Ctrl C. Okay, just press Ctrl C. It will give a small report here as well. It says 51 packets transmitted, 50 received. How much packet loss was there if some of the requests did not go through or did not receive a response? How much time it was taken? All those things. I'm going to clear. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to disconnect. Yes, the network connection has been disconnected. Now if I put ping.google.com temporary failure in name resolution, as simple as that. So once I connect again, that started. Pretty straightforward. Apart from using domain names, you can also use IP addresses like we mentioned. Now another IP address that we can ping for sure, since we have internet connection, is Cloudflare's DNS resolution address. Now that would be ping 1.1.1.1. Now But to have to understand DNS, it basically acts as an address book for all the websites that you see, in whichever way it may be. For example, if let's say we're reaching google.com, when we ping google.com, we saw this IP address responding a request. We didn't saw google.com particularly responding to requests, right? These IP address will depend based on what DNS services Google has and how many servers they have in particular locations. That's why hitting IP address directly also work. That's why DNS is essential. So we're going to ping 1.1.1.1, and you can see we're getting response times for those as well. Now these will be generally faster compared to normal, websites. As you can see, the time is much less compared to pinging google.com. Okay. Obviously, if you can't target something, let's say 1.1.2.5, for example, I'm not sure if that is even a host. 100% backend loss. It just nothing worked. It will not work. It won't send anything. Even if there is a host, let's say if I have an IP address of a system that is in my group, but it does not have permission to receive IPMP requests, or it has just closed off all the ports that we cannot connect with it, then it will just not work. It will just say it's not existing. You see, we sent 26 packets, none of them were received, and it was a 100% packet loss. That's why I'll just check once what is the IP address of our system. It was 192.168.72.130. If I 192.168.72, instead of 130, I'll just put 154 or something. Something. There is no host. If there was another address there, it would have received some request. And since there is no host, it says destination host unreachable. That's why you can check if you have connectivity with a particular system in your network or your group or your domain using the ping command. So that's the networking commands. That are all the networking commands that you need to know for now. The basics at the very least. The next thing you have to take a look at is services. Now services will differ widely based on the system that you are using. For example, on Windows, you see services for different stuff, like for any remote extra software, you check and you see services. Similar cases with Linux. If I just open, let's say htop. Okay, no, we have to install htop. Let's just use top. Here it basically functions, the top functions as a task manager. You can see so many systems, services here, the xorg, thunar, xxtop is running on the background, stuff like that. Now, if I want to start something particular, let's take the Apache web server. Now, Apache web servers have been in use for like years, decades at this point. So, in order to function, see how Apache servers use, the first thing I'm going to check is my IP address. This is my IP address. So, what I'll do is I will copy this. I'll open my web browser. Apache web servers are hosted on your own IP. So, I'll just paste it here and click enter. And you can see there's nothing popping up now. A major reason for this can be the server is not running. So one thing what we'll do is we're going to start the Apache server by starting its service. So we're going to use system system Apache to start. Now if I click enter, it'll say it just not work. What I will do is, the correct term was service, not system. And even if I click on service Apache to start, it will say it needs authentication. Now this could be bypassed by directly giving sudo and putting in the root password in the command line itself, but all in all it's the same result. So I'll just use my password here, and now I'll just remove the HTTP here because Apache is a local server. Now you can see the Apache web server has loaded based on Apache Debian default page. Now, as you can see, the server is working correctly. If I just open the terminal again, now to stop it, I can once again just go sudo service Apache to stop. This will stop the service. I'll just press enter. I'll refresh, and there we lose our access. A very good part of Apache servers used to be the ability to hold files ability to host files, basically for people in the same domain or even the same network. Okay, now you can see where the files can be stored. Like for example, it says you should replace this file located at var html index.html. So if I just open up my file explorer and go to file system, var www html, this is where a lot of people can host their files. Okay, now another better way is to hold up Python server. Now considering all of Linux almost every single Linux distribution now comes with Python pre-installed. So how we can do that is, let that keep running, we don't have an issue. Let's just check. No, actually let's stop that. It will be easier to understand how it's working. If we refresh now, as you can see, nothing is working. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a Python HTTP server. Python minus m is the sub flag for it, and HTTP server we're going to start. Now, what is my present working directory? Simplilearn. Let me just clear these. Present working directory is the home folder. If you check what are the folders that are available, desktop, documents, downloads, these are the folders. Now, if I am running the HTTP server on this folder, even though it will only my IP is going to be used for accessing the server, it depends on which folder I am hosting it from. So if I host the Python HTTP server, Python HTTP server from this folder, I just press enter, and you can see it says serving HTTP on 000 is basically your local IP address, and I'm using the port 80. You can use whichever port, that's not really important which port you use. If I refresh now, you can see I see all the folders that are available: documents, downloads. These dot are something other things that we've already seen using the -la command. So all the files are now hosted properly as expected. Similarly, if we want to use, let's say, any other files that we want to share with someone in a network easily, and this can very well function like an FTP server. This is not exactly an FTP server, but this can be easily accessed with just the URL. If someone is in my system, if someone is in my home network, for example, they can just use my IP address, which will be 192.168.702.130. They can check the ping command and see if it is reachable, which it should be, unless and until some particular port is closed. They can just access the files using this one. Now to stop the Python HTTP server, once again just press Ctrl+C and it's gone. So that's how you work with services in Kali Linux, at least from a basic perspective. That's how it's going to work. Now one of the last things that we're going to check is the ability to install, update tools, and basically all the software that you can see here. You see all the applications that can be run. For example, the vulnerability analysis tools, Nmap, SQL Map, Reaver, Pixie WPS, all those things. Now how do these get installed, updated, and basically dealt with? So PT, actually apt get also, but those are interchangeable and you can use whichever one you like. I use apt get, but in order to check, let's say if you want to update a system, which is one of the bare minimum needs of every system, right? So the command for that is going to be, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use sudo su, which is the sudo super user. I will just use sudo su and go into the root stage, because almost all of the commands that I'm going to put next require sudo. So I might as well just be without having to type the password every single time. Now, once I'm sudo su, the correct command would be apt get update. Now what this will do is it will check the repositories. Every Linux distribution has a few repositories that it gets the softwares and updates from. It will check the package list. Now for now, the repository that is being hit is the kali.download kali rolling in release, right? So it will update the repositories based on the data available on that particular address. We use the apt get update command there. So next thing what we are going to do is apt get upgrade. Yes. So now after the repositories have been updated with the data available on the web server, it says that the following packages will be upgraded. You can see the Apache 2 server needs an update. Then you have CS certificates, script setup, Firefox ESR, which is a Firefox browser for extended support release Linux platforms, all those things, the Mesa Vulkan drivers, Python Flask, all those things. Out of a total 303 upgraded, no new installations are needed, and 4 need not be upgraded. So after this operation, you'll see 364 MB of files needs to be downloaded and 24 MB additional disk space will be used. You can either continue using Y or N. So that's how you're going to update your system. Now even if I click N and be done with it, this is all about updating. I'm going to clear this out. But how do we install files? For example, if you remember, I typed out a command called htop. It says command htop not found but can be installed with apt install htop. That can once again be apt get as well. It's not a very big deal which one do you use. I'll just cancel this and I will write out the command myself. Let's use apt for this one instead of apt get. Apt install htop. Now I am able to do this very easily because htop is already in the repository. I have that in the Kali enrolling release repository. That's why, as you can see, the installation has been started. This is the fetched 152 KB, which is the size of htop. It's a very small thing, and the installation is now complete. Now if I just sit on htop, you can see a newer version of the task manager or the system monitor, essentially to see what kind of where the memory is being used, the CPU percentage, all those things. So that's how you can install. If I press Ctrl C again, I'll go back to my command line interface. So that's how you can install. To remove, you can just use apt remove HTTP. It says 1 to remove and 387 kilobyte disk will be freed. If I just press enter, you don't have htop anymore. So that's how you install and remove tools from Kali Linux using the apt and apt-get. Now these apt and apt-get are package managers specifically for Debian and Debian based operating systems. That's why these commands will be consistent across all Debian based distribution systems unless and until they have their own package manager, which is not really the case if they are based on Debian. So similarly, Fedora has DNF, Arch has Pacman, all those things. So those will differ. But if in a particular base distribution, these package managers will be the same. So that's how you can use apt and apt-get to understand how you can install and remove tools. So I think we've covered everything that we've set the agenda for in this Kali Linux tutorial and basically a Linux crash course. Now these are all the basics of Linux and there are so much more to learn. If you have any requirements, like if you want to learn about something, maybe more about file systems or more about users and privileges, or just you need something specific, let's say you want to hack, if you want to learn privileges escalation, or if you want to learn how to hack wireless networks, please let us know in the comments below. We will definitely get back to you with that. Thank you so much for watching and keep learning.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.